Okay, I'm only on my laptop today, so um, let me know if you can see the screen. I can't see the Chime chat.
Can see it, Marty.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, yeah, so once again, welcome all. We always do this little intro here. Today we are going to talk about out-of-state investing, and it's actually myself and Manny. Both of us are Um, been longtime Amazonians. I've been on the Amazon Music team and worked here for about 11 years now. How long you been here, Manny?
4 years in June.
Okay. Nice. And yeah, we both are on the real estate committee, and both of us have invested out of state, so we figured we'll do a quick session on that for you all. I really wanted to add because we are friends outside of this, so I wanted to add some fun pictures, but unfortunately, speaking of real estate life, I had some Airbnb issues I needed to take care of right before. So um, you won't get to see any of our fun pictures that I was trying to put together, but hopefully next time. But let me talk a little bit about our group here. So real estate at Amazon. Our mission continues to be to really educate, bring value, and network with one another to achieve the dream of financial freedom through real estate investing, right? That's really the goal. All of us here, whether it's on the committee or otherwise, we put this together for you all to kind of learn, hopefully take away a couple good nuggets of information and then pass it forward and hopefully also come on and sometimes present all the things that you've learned over the time and share
Amor,
it with others.
¿qué estás haciendo?
Uh, Sorry, could you go on mute? Someone was unmuted. Um, yeah, so that's really our goal, continues to be our goal. We obviously this is just it's additional work, but a passion of ours, right, that we want to do. So we really want to share as much as we can and bring on cool speakers for everyone. And so with that, just want to why don't you all drop in the chat, anyone that's here today, kind of where are you dialing in from, a little bit about yourself, maybe like your real estate goal, or your position at Amazon, but come say hi, don't be shy here. We're all just kind of a group trying to learn from one another. So welcome if this is your first time. Um, and if this is your, 10th, 20th time, welcome back. Always want to share a few like real estate networking and learning opportunities. Um, So one of them, this is pretty like heavily Seattle focused. We're based out of Seattle here, but one thing I think I'm going to add next time, I know there's a bunch of local Slack channels that have come up. I know there's some Chicago investing, Seattle investing, which are also really good resources for y'all. Couple things for Seattle. Uh, this date is not updated. It should be 03/29/2024. Um, Actually, sorry, no, this is our old happy hour, so I'll have to update this one again. I was dealing with some of the Airbnb things and try to do this really quick before. Um, so scratch that first one. We are gonna try to do more in-person happy hours though. So we did one on 02/29. So it's almost a month ago now, which is crazy, with the original founder of this group, Justin Canberra. That was our first in-person one. It was really, really good, and we'll aim to do more of those as we go forward. So keep a lookout on Gather, and as we send out announcements for the group, right? So we'll try to do those. We'll try to do some happy hour ones where we just kind of meet up, and we'll have to limit that to a certain number of people. But if they're valuable for you all, we'll continue to do them and just kind of hang out, right? Like hang out, network, have again learn from each other, talk to each other, create community. That's really what this is all about. This next one here is correct. So the team I'm on at Compass as well, we host house hack and investor happy hours. Very similar to what we do here, except it's not virtual, although we're trying to implement that as well. But it's in person. You come out. This is usually in Fremont, either at a brewery or in the office space. Um, it's only about $10. You get really amazing speakers. This time on next Thursday, we'll talk about how to win offers in very competitive markets. Seattle is a super competitive market at the moment. Other markets in the US are heating up as well. And so really, really interesting. We try to, again, provide a ton of value. You get food, you get drinks, and you just meet a lot of cool people. So come out if you're in Seattle. That'll be next Thursday from 6 to 9 in Fremont. I'll send out some details as well and share the link, but it'll be on Meetup under Houseside Seattle. A couple of other ones here that you can join either in person or virtually is the Real Estate at Work run by Leica, and I know Manny's involved in that one quite heavily as well. The Seattle Investors Club meeting every Thursday at 11:30, and REAPS, the Real Estate Association of Puget Sound. So lots of good info there. If anything in your local market that you want to drop in the chat where you're like, hey, I go to this every week, right? Or I go to this once a month, but I'm meeting cool investors. Drop it in here, right? Let the group know. We really want to just try to share as much networking opportunities as possible.
I think Seattle Investors Club, they probably have changed the timings now. I think if this is one ran by Julie Clark, and I think it's Tuesday at 11 or 1 p.m. I can confirm.
Okay.
I think they've changed the schedule, so we can probably correct
Okay.
what that is.
Cool. Yeah, so we'll make that update. Yeah, so be on the take a look at that link. You also Tuesday, maybe then like 11 or 1. But always kind of be on the lookout for the opportunities that are out there. Real estate engagement. So our updates for the group, we'll send them to realestate@amazon.com. A lot of times we're getting some really unrelated real estate stuff, but it is moderated, so we decline it so that you all won't get spammed by it. So generally, what you'll see on there, is really looking to give you event reminders, any type of updates that we have when we have speakers come in or when we have these happy hours. Or other things that we want to share that we believe are valuable for the overall group. If you have any questions, you want to kind of present, or you're like, hey, I really would be interested, send an email at realestateCommittee@Amazon. Also, just feedback, kind of what is it that you're looking for that you would like to see more of. We'll hope to incorporate that at some point. We have a wiki where you can check out more about the group. And there's a couple of Slack channels, and as I mentioned earlier, more of them are getting created that are like localized, which I think is pretty cool. But the two big broad ones are the real estate and the investing real estate ones. So if you're not part of those, check them out. Tons of knowledge, tons of information out there. Everything happens through Gather for us for the most part. And the group's been really, really growing. So in 2023, we had a goal of 2,000 people, and we crossed that. And right now we're at 2,200, which is amazing. So our 2024 goal is to get 3,000 people. So if you find this valuable, if you find this interesting, share it with your colleagues that may be interested in real estate. We even want to try to get some more just financial kind of like financial literacy, financial, personal finance type of speakers potentially on as well. So again, the goal is just to spread the word as much as we can, because if you find someone that gets even a little bit of value on one of them, and they share it and they start investing, they start helping other people. That's really what it's all about. So spread the word. I think it's amazing. 2,200, 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago when this kind of started, we were at like 3 people. So I get the question pretty much every single week of if what we've done has been recorded. The answer is always yes, and it gets updated to the Realestate@Amazon broadcast channel. So subscribe there. Go to broadcast.com, look at type in real estate or just real estate, and you'll find our channel. If you subscribe, you should get notifications. This session, including all these other sessions that we've done, they're all there, and there's so much valuable, amazing information. So you don't have to go very, very far. It's all right here. It's all recorded for y'all. And go check that out. We do have a next event, still confirming it, but that will be Friday, March 29th. So next Friday on passive real estate investing syndications. Not fully confirmed yet, but be on the lookout on Gather as we create that. That's the plan to have that session next Friday. And then, as I mentioned too, if any of you all, or if you know somebody, especially Amazonians, that are in real estate that would like to present, and it doesn't have to be you don't have to have done a ton of deals. If you've done one deal and you're like, wow, this worked really well for me, that's actually, to me, sometimes more valuable, right? Because if I'd have to put a number on it, I would imagine of the 2,200, probably 70 to 80% probably have done like 3 or fewer deals, right? So it's really, really cool always, I think, when someone comes on who's like, hey, I've done this one, it was amazing. I want to share what I learned. So if you know anyone, feel free to reach out to me in the committee, and we'll try to get a session scheduled. And then thank you for anyone on the committee. So again, there's only a few of us right now. We've kind of reduce it a bit and trying to really make sure we all are engaged. And so these are some of the folks that are super engaged in bringing these events to you all. So thank you for everyone that's helping out. And with that, I think we can get started. Let me stop sharing my screen here for a minute. So the way we're doing this time around is a little bit different. We don't have a slide deck presentation, but we do have some kind of questions around out-of-state investing that we get quite commonly, that both myself and Manny will answer. But I think maybe we'll just kind of start telling you all a bit about our journey. Manny, do you want to kind of take it?
Yeah, like an intro. My name is Manan. I am a program manager in payment technology. Been with Amazon for almost 4 years. Investing wise, I think I started investing in end of 2021, 2022 timeframe. That was my first kind of investment property I bought out of state. Since then, I bought a house hack in Seattle that I ran for a little bit. Then I have a short-term rental property management company, and I recently got my real estate license. So kind of making step-by-step progress in the kind of financial freedom space. But I'm hoping we can talk some exciting stuff today.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, my name, as I mentioned, Marty Krimmel. I've been investing probably for 7 years now, and outside of my primary, I actually started out-of-state investing. So it's definitely a topic that I think is super valuable. Although I don't own any out-of-state rentals, well, actually I do own one partnership still, but although I sold most of them, that's kind of the way that I started initially. And I think it's a really, really, really good way. So for me, it was kind of starting with a duplex there out in New York, and then a quadplex that followed the next year, and then a partnership on kind of like a continuous burr that we are doing. Yeah. So what do you want to do? Should we kind of jump into the questions a bit?
Yeah.
All right.
Go with the first one.
Yep.
The first question is, how do I choose the right out-of-state market to invest in? What factors should I consider evaluating different markets, and where can I find reliable data or resources? for the market research. You want to go ahead?
Sure. Yeah, so that is like a question that I get a lot of times, right? It's a, like, where should I invest in? And I talk about this a lot, whether it's for out of state or in general. It's kind of figuring out your criteria is super super important, right? Because if you look at all 50 states, right, you can be successful in any of them. But thinking about what is it that matters to you. So like, what are the numbers that you want to hit, right? What is kind of the area that you want to specifically focus on, and you can use data for that. And we have some resources that we'll provide as well, to kind of help you decide as far as the market. And I will share something here real quick that um, that I present also in just kind of like a general intro session oftentimes. So let me just share my screen here for a minute. So one thing when I think about like what markets to invest in, put that up here. Oh, sorry. This is go all the way through. Okay. But here's some criteria, right, that you do want to look at when it's about what market to choose. So population growth, right, is a big one. You want to generally go into markets where population is going up, right, not where it's declining. Some of the links we'll provide afterwards. There's different ones on the Census Bureau. There's a site called City Data, where you can look at that and you can specifically kind of pick your state, pick your area, and pick your market, using some of these criteria. So population growth, crime rate, right, is another one. Truly, I used to have a really good kind of site where you can look at what's the crime rate in a particular area. There's different, they come like the police whoppers, right? So you can look, once you've kind of identified your state and your city, right? You want to look at that, like some of these specific neighborhoods, what's the crime rate like there? Affordability, right? Is it an area like Seattle? It's a very expensive market, high income, right? As you can kind of see on this chart over here, but it is very expensive. So that means you will be kind of getting, you will get generally tenants that are able to afford it more, but you will also, your pool might be smaller, right? Versus when you're going to like the Midwest, or where I started in Buffalo, New York, where the average household income there's probably around 40,000, maybe a little bit less, and so you have a bigger pool, right? When it's more affordable, but sometimes the quality of tenants can be different. Landlord tenant laws, right? So there's areas where it's super, super restrictive. So as you decide on your market, research what are the landlord and tenant laws. I know a lot of people who've moved from Seattle, where it's fairly restrictive, to like Texas, where it's less so. So you have to give shorter notices on evictions, right? You have rental increases that are more easy to come by. So thinking of that, like thinking of how restricted is it if I'm going to be a landlord in that area. And then income, again, kind of looking at this chart here, it's figuring out what is kind of the median household income. And I'll share again these links here. Like, got this from the census website, and really thinking through that, taking some of these criteria as you decide on your market. Another one that I really like is kind of these U-Haul growth states, right? So if I was to look today, where do I want to invest in? I might start in one of these top 10 markets here, right? This is where have the most U-Hauls gone in 2023, right? And then comparing it to the previous year. So you see Texas and Florida, right, are two like really, really strong markets that had the highest growth right there. So that might be an indicator for me where I say, okay, this could be a good one to look into. North Carolina kind of has moved up the list a little bit. Washington, right, was 23 the previous year, and it's number 7 when you look at it from 2023. So these are some of the data points that can kind of help you. I would just encourage you, pick one or two, right? And then kind of go deeper in that rather than being like, okay, I'm going to look at all 10 of these states, right? Because again, you got to remember that you can honestly be successful, in my opinion, almost anywhere. It's just your strategy um, is going to change a little bit. Anything you want to add on there, Manny?
No, I think you pretty much covered everything. One thing I do want to kind of bring this up because as I bought my property and as I think about it, like out of state, like the next one, what would I do differently? One thing would be, what do I want to do with the asset, right? Do I want to put it short term, mid term, long term? Like some of the areas, some of the states are more like tourist friendly, so there's where short term rental might work better than long term rental. Some people like that consistent income month over month versus the fluctuation and volatility with the income. With that come with the short term. So I think that also is a factor. Like, what are you comfortable with? What are you trying to learn? What type of property or asset you want to acquire? Is it for short-term rental, long-term rental? Is it for both? The new thing is midterm rental, right? Find a city where there are a lot of hospitals, things like that. So that could be one of the things. Hey, at the end of the day, what you want to do. So that's one of the kind of components I would include. And we can cover more in the exit strategy, but as you buy into this market, um, obviously outside these major components, what else you want to look for?
Yeah, I love it. And one thing too, one real good kind of tidbit I got. I remember hearing this years ago on Bigger Pockets, and I've kind of followed this. Um, is One of the speakers there who'd been investing in, I think, 3 or 4 different states, and he said he's never invested anywhere where, well, he said he's never lost money on a deal, and his reason was because he's never invested anywhere that he didn't previously live, right? So where he didn't know the market.
Right.
Okay. So it's like, um, you can absolutely, we'll encourage, right? You can invest in other states. From if you live in Washington, you can invest in Kansas and all these things. But I've kind of always thought about that. And especially with our kind of virtual world, we move around. So think about that. Maybe you've lived in 2 or 3 states, right? And so if you think about out of state investing, it could be somewhere where you did live and where you know the market really well.
Yeah, and even though if you haven't lived, if you know somebody who lives there, who can do like a walkthrough or know the neighborhood, right? Not the I went to Columbus because my brother lives there, but it was one of the point that I was visiting Columbus more often to see him right after I moved to Seattle, and we used to go around, and I was always interested in real estate, so we would go to different neighborhoods. Not that I was planning for long term to invest in Columbus, but I got myself familiar with the neighborhood. So that's probably one of the key reasons. Like, and if you have somebody that like siblings, cousin, whoever, then get the insight from them. Like from close neighborhood standpoint, there's so much data out there, but you can only know so much from the online. If you have boots on the ground, then leverage it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, really good point. One example there I can provide for y'all is obviously this group, and I've taken advantage of this myself. Like almost a year ago, we had someone come on here, kind of younger intern, but she was from Florida, right? So she moved from Florida, or didn't move, but she had her internship here in Seattle, came from Florida, has her real estate license down there in Florida, and wanted to start investing there. And so we talked about partnering up, right? So like, do I know the Florida market in depth? I don't. I don't know very much outside of the kind of, right, when we talk about the initial criteria, and you guys look at those numbers and you say, okay, Florida is my market, right? So then to Manny's point is like, who can you connect with? And that's like a real world example, right? She came on here, she was part of the group, she was looking for someone that would partner with her in that state. And so she has all the market knowledge, and then it's like, okay, what can I bring to the table, right? Like maybe I'll bring the financing, right? And we partner up on the money side, but I don't need to have the knowledge of that market if I find someone that I trust that does.
Right.
Okay.
Cool. Want to jump to the next one? What are the risks associated with out of state investing? How can I mitigate this risk effectively? And what are the unique challenges of managing properties?
You go first.
I can talk about managing properties. I think that was one of the big component when I bought my first investment property was technically out of state. So it's in a way there was a little intimidating factor that hey, how am I going to manage it, right? And I think the challenge is with the managing property is obviously you cannot manage remotely. Personally, I'm not a handy person, so even though the house is next door, I cannot do the management. I cannot fix anything. So I would need a property manager, but I would suggest and encourage everyone that when they do underwrite the deals, make sure you include the property management expense, which is probably 8 to 10% on average. Um, Not super challenging, but obviously I interviewed a lot of property managers, and I think we should always. I probably interviewed close to 7 to 8 property managers before I signed up on anyone. Haven't didn't meet in person when I went the first time, but when I closed a deal, that's when I started interviewing them. I had a list of questions that we can share with the community. When you interview property managers, what are some of the things you should look for? Things like that. Not that it's completely hands off always with property manager. So just want to make sure that even though you have property manager, it will not be completely hands off. They will call you time to time. Things will break. So have that mental preparation that hey, even though you're a property manager, you'll still come across the challenges that something they cannot take care of themselves, that they will reach out to you. But I think property management, if you can have a good property manager by your side, I think they can take a big chunk of load out of your plate and the anxiety and whatever the stress that comes with the with the out of state investing. Other risk, obviously, I jumped into a property with inherited tenants. So some folks don't like that. They want to start from fresh, which is totally fine. But if you're starting from fresh, then like also want to consider the risk is like, hey, you have to manage the carrying costs for the first couple months until you find the tenants. So it's not going to break even or cash flow from day one. Um, I personally didn't have to go through that, luckily. Not that I had a decent tenant, so not that it didn't turn over. But from day one, I was actually kind of started paying off from the rental, so didn't have to go through the entire cycle of hey, putting the listing on the market, etc. But what I encourage is to have leave that buffer, leave that carrying cost when you're going out of state. Like something unexpected will come up. Even though I had tenants inherited, I had a lot of maintenance that came up in first 3 months, and that was kind of hey, what I got myself into questions. Like, hey, what am I gonna do? Right? Things are breaking like $500 and things like that every month. I'm not gonna cash flow. But apparently, have some patience, give some time for the property and yourself to stabilize mentally and emotionally with the property. And I think gradually it will get on track.
Yeah.
So
No. Yeah, totally agree with everything kind of Manny said. I think the risks are very similar to the risks that you have with investing in general, right? So if you go buy a property, like he gave the great example as far as fix, even if you buy the next door property, you can't fix it. So it's like a similar one along those lines, right? Even if you buy the property next door to you, um, you you will have a lot of overlapping risks, right? So we talked about the tenants, right? It's kind of how are the tenants you're gonna the type of tenants you're gonna get, um, what they're gonna do with the property, right? I think the scary part for people comes around like the control, like the loss of control, because you feel like okay, if my house is next door, I can just walk over, right? And I can just talk to the tenants if there's an issue. If not something needs to be fixed, I'm right there. If they're not paying or something, I'm right there. And if you invest out of state, um, you don't have that, and you don't often see the property. So a risk of that is just your um, it's a perceived like loss of control in my opinion. But as we'll talk about a little bit, it's like he already mentioned, it's around the team, right? So there's always ways for you to kind of mitigate that risk, but you are in fact not there, right? So it's like, could you buy a house where if you don't really know the area, like let's say you use your criteria that we just talked about, and you pick Florida and you pick Orlando, and you again, you're not there, right? You didn't live there. You don't know the neighborhood, and you're buying a property because you're like, hey, this is cheap. I'm buying this one for 200,000. One of the risks is just that you don't know exactly, right? It's different than when you live here in Seattle and you live in this neighborhood. You know kind of what is it once I open my door, what's out there. You don't know those things um, when you invest out of state. So I think that piece is probably the biggest risk, this kind of loss of control, like loss of potential knowledge of the neighborhood. How am I going to deal when things break? What if I want to remodel something? How am I going to get people there? There's solutions to all of these, but that's probably the couple of the biggest risks that I hear from people.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes to our next question is like how do we build reliable team, right, to mitigate this risk or kind of get a little piece from that and what kind of professional like so one example that like just to understand the market, connecting with the local real estate agent, right? Like if even though you narrow down your state, county, or city, even though you don't plan to invest immediately or next quarter or within 6 months, try to build that relationship with the agent, right? Connect with four or five of them and understand how better or how good they are at understanding the local market, the local neighborhood. You can kind of gauge from that as well. And like personally, what I like to do is that if I'm traveling somewhere, like I went to Texas, Austin the other day, and I was interested in investing in Austin. I'm still, but what I'll do is basically I'll take a day or two extra and try to drive around some of the neighborhoods or go to the open houses, right? Get the feel of the real estate market, what the conversations are. So open houses are obviously like you can walk in and connect with the agent there, scratch their head, and see what kind of information they share. So that's one of the good way to kind of get relationships started in the state you want to invest in. And even though it's not immediate, you can create that foundation. Same thing goes with the property managers, right? When you kind of speak to the property manager, hey, what kind of investors come in? What kind of property they buy? Like, what are the normal price of the property? What are the average rents around the neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the good ways to vet your team and build your team beforehand you get into buying property for yourself. And so you already did your homework quite a bit, and 80% of the time you already know who you want to go with. Because when you buy property, you are in like loop, like, hey, I need to do this, this, this. Instead, just start a little bit ahead and kind of get in ahead of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, very, really, really, really good because so I went on the mitigating risk kind of question, um, on the team building question, right? Like that's it. Like Manny said, it's like if you go to these different events, I did a similar thing. Like an example on mine was I went to see my friend in Phoenix, Arizona. So I don't know anything much about Phoenix, Arizona, but we started driving around and I saw like there's a lot of construction going up in different areas. And he just recently purchased a home, right? So we started kind of talking through it, like what type of um, what type of investing do you see here, right? Are these like good short-term rentals? Like, is is it something that recently happened, or is the construction kind of been happening over the past few years? Um, what's this area like in general, right? So as you go, just visit your friends or your family, or you go to events. That's kind of can help you as well to kind of get a better understanding of the market. And then to the point of building your team, uh, that's huge. That's in my opinion like the biggest key, because everyone, we talked about some of the risks. Um, but you really can mitigate those by building a really good team. Um, and some of the most important, like Manny mentioned, property manager, right? Super, super important. They have the local market knowledge. They're going to be taking care of your property. Like that should be your most important kind of hire. Um, the real estate agent, right? That's going to bring you the deals. Like super, super important, right? You want someone that really is hustling, that's really working hard for you to bring you those deals within your buy box kind of criteria. Contractors, right? So if you want to remodel, if you're buying a fixer upper, you're gonna have to have good contractors there. And to give you the real world example for me is I had zero experience out of state investing. And what happened like 7 years ago, I was like in my garage and I was working on something, and then I was listening to Bigger Pockets, which we'll probably haven't mentioned, but we'll talk a little bit about. Um, and I listened to David Green, who's now one of the hosts, talking about out of state investing, and he talked exactly about that, like building your rock star team, right? And it's that it takes all that scariness of out of state away if you can build that team. So how do you do it? This is exactly how I did it. So I literally next day went on Bigger Pockets, right? And to the point earlier, I'm like, I lived in Buffalo before, so I figured I'll start there. And I just went on the forum and I typed in Buffalo, New York, and I got all this list of conversation around Buffalo, and I put a post in there that said, "Hey, I would like to invest in Buffalo, New York. Anyone can help me," right? That's it. Okay. So, it really is kind of like thinking about what's kind of that next step, right? And so I did that, and then a property manager reached out. And the cool thing about Bigger Pockets, you can see how much do they engage on the forum, right? Like, you can even see what kind of properties do they own. So it could be that someone reaches out to you and they're like, "Yeah, I can help you," but you have no like they'll have two connections and own one property, right? Maybe not the person you want to, but the person that reached out to me was like the top contributor on Bigger Pockets for Buffalo and for property management,
Right.
right? So that right away gave me good credibility, or gave him good credibility, and we started going back and forth a little bit. We jumped on a couple phone calls, and that was my very first hire, and became also my kind of first mentor, really. That kind of got me into investing. And again, I always love, like, I think some things get just overcomplicated, but it's really like sitting down and be like, what is that step you can do? So anyone that's, we got 40 people here on the call. Um, for any of you that are like, yeah, like, where do I start? Like, there's an actionable step for you, right? Like after this session today, you've picked your market based on some of these criteria. We'll share the links for you so you can literally just go click on them. And then you go and you write a quick post, right? Or you reach out to a friend. Like that's like your kind of first step. And then that's like your first hire, right? And then from there, if they're really good and if they are rock stars, they can get you these other resources. So as we started working together, and as we jumped on phone calls and I interviewed him, I started realizing, like, yeah, this guy really knows his stuff. Like he gave me a calculator to analyze properties, and he walked me through it. Something that will help you guys out with as well. Um, but that kind of thing, at that point, I'd never seen a real estate calculator. So I had no idea what that even meant. But he's like, here's a calculator. You can start running some numbers, and I'll walk you through it, and I'll send you some properties. And then he's like, I'll connect you with the real estate agent, right? There's your next team member, right? So he connected me with that real estate agent, started talking to him, um, and saw that that guy is really, really working hard and really wanted to find me a property. So I'm like, oh, that guy seems really good. And then, we find the property, and it needs work, right? Well, first we do an inspection. I never done an inspection, right, on a property. But he also had that contact, right? He could give me the, like, this is a good inspector I've worked with. And then I'm like, oh, I need some remodel work. And he's like, well, I have contractors that I've worked with, right? But it all started with that very initial one. And so do a good due diligence on the type of property manager that you hire. And there was a question, I think, around what questions you asked him. I think, Manny, you said you have a list of questions, right? That you
Yeah,
can
for the
share.
property managers, I have a vetted list of questions, talking to different folks over here and out of state, checking with the bigger pockets as well. So I think I can vet a list of questions we can share with the community. Sure.
Cool. Awesome.
Okay, I think we have what 15, 17 minutes. Marty, you want to jump on some of the questions on the chat? I know we have a long list of questions that will
Yeah.
probably go for another 2 hours, but
Yeah. We were talking
let's
about.
think if I'm scrolling down. The first question I see is any thoughts on business that focus on helping out of state investors like rent to retirement or some of those, like an application website that help you kind of vet or buy properties out of state? I personally haven't done it. I did have a consultation call with one of them um, in the Midwest market. Obviously, the price was good, but some of the things like they asked me is to lock in the property management with them for a year. They charge you X percentage of the acquisition and stuff like that. So I guess if you're okay with that and if you want to be pretty hands off in the buying process, I think they're a good resource. They can manage your property. Those are some of the things who kind of buy the property, stress property, renovate it, and they put it on their website. I think that's one of the model I know. So it's kind of you're buying from them, but at the same time they're earning your business from the property management standpoint. I personally don't have any experience working with them or buying unless Marty you have things to share.
Yeah, good question. I also don't. I would just kind of echo some of the things Manny said. So depends on your specific situation. I've looked into like kind of rent to retirement, and I'm a little bit uh, it's very turnkey for you, right? So they will take their they will take when you look at it as an overall project, right? They will take higher fees than if you were to do more work, more of your own kind of like work, and you go find a property manager and then you go work with an agent, right? Versus they're kind of like a one-stop shop where it's more like, hey, I have $100,000 to invest. You know, you go look at them, they run their numbers. I would always, they usually give you cash flow, cap rate, numbers. Always run them in your own calculator. Always kind of do your own due diligence. Um, but from what I've heard, like I've only known one or two people that have used them, and kind of the feedback that I got there was they work, they work. But if you look at it from what's my like biggest bang for the buck, you would, and you want to learn more too, you're probably better off kind of just going the route of, hey, I'm gonna, find my property manager on my own, like someone that charges a normal 8 to 10%, work with an agent that finds a property. But it's also a time thing, right? So if you're just like, hey, I want to, again, I have $100,000 here that I want to invest, um, go work with them. And a good thing as well would be drop that on the real estate Slack investing one. So I'm sure there'll be a few people who've worked with a specific company.
Yep. The next one is how do you handle the process of existing tenant move out and recruiting a new tenant? I can take that. I think most of the time, like I just had two turnovers in the last 2 years. So both of mine had a tenant move out. I had to put them in, new tenants in. So the way I work, so you basically work with the property managers, try to understand their vetting process, right? So they personally, if I had to do personally, I would definitely run the background checks, criminal history, credit history. But if you have a property manager, I think he should be able to provide the service. Usually, I just have a, usually the way I run it, like I have a quarterly call with my property manager, see how the property are doing, the maintenance wise, if there is any crazy maintenance, or if I have seen the utilities going up. I think that's some of the things I would vet. But tenant wise, I think you want to make sure that the criminal history, there is no criminal history, no eviction records. Uh, they're financially stable. They have a decent job to pay for, I guess, the rent. Usually it's like 2 or 3x the rent. The income should be, gross income should be. I think that's kind of a default way to look at it. But every property manager has a different, I guess, the vetting process. So make sure you have that laid out with your property manager when you look for it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I've much to add. I mean, I've always run it through my property manager, and for us, he had this platform called Buildium, and so I could just look into Buildium, log in there, and I would see, okay, here is the list of damages and things we took from the deposit or things that we need from you to cover to do the move out, the tenant move out. If it was an amount over $500, then he would connect with me prior to doing the work. But otherwise, he would just, they would clean the unit, they would get the keys, do the transfer, start listing the property against once it's cleaned up, painted, everything, and then re-rent it. But they would keep me in the loop through that platform called Buildium, and I could really see step by step what was going on.
Yep. Fair. So next question is, what are the most important questions to ask when interviewing the PM or property management companies? What do you have?
Yeah, for me, what was most important was around experience. Like, what is your experience? So, how many units do you have under management, right? Is it one or is it 100? Um, do you invest yourself, right? Are you an investor? Um, if the answer is no, doesn't necessarily mean I don't want to work with you, but as I'm interviewing 2 or 3 property managers, investors think a little bit different, right? Have a different mindset. Um, I would ask about how fast do you rent units, right? What's usually kind of the average rent that you're getting? What are costs for turnover? Do you have any references, right? Like, go ask if there's other people that they've worked with, see how they react to those questions. It's the same. I use this when interviewing an agent, right? You want to get really clear on, okay, here's what I want to do. Is this person that I'm working with doing what I want to do, right? Like, when people always ask me a lot for working together here on like the agent side and stuff, and it's like you can go to anybody really, but the question is, do these people have the experience that you're looking for? Are they actually investing? Do they know how to run numbers? Do they have properties under management? Right? So those are some of the things that I would ask.
Yeah, in addition to what Marty said, I would try to understand the systems they have in place, right? The communication system, how do they connect with you as a landlord, and how do they connect with the tenants, right? You don't want something breaking a house and tenant reach out and the property manager doesn't respond until next 48 hours for something which is very immediate, right? That's gonna screw your property, basically. So you want to understand what the response rate is, how quickly they act on the whatever issues or get communication, and at the same time, like what kind of communication systems or any kind of reporting they send out to you. Like, hey, do they give you like quarterly reviews? Like, this is what happened, this didn't happen. So try to understand the systems in place. What do they have? What they can offer you from communication standpoint? If you reach out with a question, how quickly they usually respond. Most of the things, or some of these things, you won't know until you get in. But if you can get some of the data around or referrals, then you can talk to the referrals, I mean references, and ask these questions. Try to learn more about them from the tenant experience standpoint.
Yep.
Okay, so next question is there artifacts like checklist, spreadsheet, etc. that you can share with us? Yes, we will. I think Marty did share the calculator or quip to the calculator, I believe.
Yeah,
Uh,
I just dropped the quip in here. If you guys want to put down your name, um, this was regarding some of the resources I had shared, including the calculator of one of the other sessions we did. So I think if you drop it in there, we'll see that you updated it today or over the next however many days. We can send you the calculator as well as like the maybe the questions, the checklist questions, or any other resources that you have. Um, I have kind of the list here that I've gathered, and so we can.
Yeah.
Sorry, so it starts at the beginning, but um, here's the calculator that I use to kind of analyze properties. It would be a whole nother session to go through it, but I can share that with you, and it's always updated, so that's why it's good to have the reference of the names. And then there's some other resources here we can share, including the long distance real estate investing book. Super helpful. An amazing book.
Yep. And we'll share the questions regarding the property management and even out-of-state real estate investing, what kind of questions you can ask the agent as well. So that will be helpful. Next question is a little bit off topic, I think, but let me put it this way, since this is something new going on. I'm aware of some agents, realtors are here, and any thoughts on the recent settlement by NAR commission? So I think basically the commission question, and I don't have much insight on what the implications are, what the new norm will be, honestly. Right? I think as an agent, we are all kind of going through and understanding how this will how this will be navigated through the industry on the buy side commission, or I think the changes with the commission.
Yeah, I have lots of thoughts on it. I think we don't have nearly enough time to cover it. I think it's probably not the best actually for buyers necessarily. I would say, because while you might find agents that will offer you a lower commission, the problem is that usually sellers used to pay for it, right? And if sellers agents don't do that anymore, right? The 6%, like it's 3% and 3%, let's say, or 2.5% and 2.5%, 5%. If they don't do that anymore, now you have to pay for it as a buyer, right? So it's going to come out of your pocket directly, which wasn't the case before. So we don't have the time to dive into a lot of details there, but happy to chat a bit more. Maybe we'll do a session and get somebody in on it.
Yeah. Fair. Okay, I think we already addressed this. I think we have both. The next question is: would you suggest hiring a PM out of state, or would it be possible to handle it remotely? I would encourage property manager all the time, even though you're investing in state, unless you kind of want to work on the property, unless you have a personal contact who you're confident about can take care of things, right? If not, then I would definitely go with the property manager, no matter where you invest. Unless, Marty, you have a different viewpoint.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay. The next question is more about the financing, right? I think that was one of the questions we had in our checklist as well, or the question we wanted to cover. How would you go about the financing the properties? Like conventional, or I think strategies around
Yeah.
different strategies around the financing or the out-of-state rental.
Yeah. Yep. So the biggest thing, if you want to go conventional, is finding a lender that's licensed in that state. And you can, even within your own state where you live today, within your own city, you could ask your own lender. Like I know a couple lenders here that I work with on Washington properties that are also licensed to do business in California, also licensed to do business in New York, and so on. So talk to your lenders that you already have here. Otherwise, again, like Bigger Pockets, you find a ton of lenders that license there. Another piece for financing is partnerships, right? So like I talked a little bit about earlier, that's what I do now. I work with somebody over there in the state, and we partner together, so we finance the deals together that way. So those are probably the two biggest ones, but it isn't terribly different or complicated as long as you find a lender license in that state.
And the question is a little bit more specific. How do the lenders consider rental income and DTI ratio when you're trying to acquire the next property? What percentage of income qualifies? And it's more lender specific question, but Marty, do you have any, is there an industry standard for it?
Yeah, the standard is 75% of your gross rents will be counted towards your income. So the one requirement is you have to have a lease that is at least 12 months. Or if you don't have that yet, some will accept kind of future leases or whatever is shown on your tax return. So they're going to ask for your tax return. If they do see the rental income under, they can use up to 75% of that to help you towards your DTA.
Got it. Have you guys
Uh,
considered commercial real estate?
and I'm actually sorry, you guys. I think we'll have to kind of wrap this up because this is my meeting bridge,
Oh, okay,
and
yeah.
I have a meeting right at 1 p.m. and we're only about two minutes away. So unless you want to listen in on some director level conversation that I have here,
Yeah,
um,
no, I think we can take this question and try to do like another section on this. Try to dive deep into more of the financing and other properties. But I think this was a good session. I know there are a few questions we wanted to cover ourselves, but I think given the interest of time, let's wrap it up and probably we'll schedule another part two of this to chat about it.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you guys so much. We have everyone that kind of signed up. We have them on the invite, so we'll do that, and we'll send out all our resources.
Cool. Thank you all.
All right. Thanks all.
Bye now.
Bye.